All right, and we are live. With us today for our community cast, I got Progo and Helvik, and we also have Mr. of the Blood Guard, but he's experiencing some technical difficulties. So looks like right now there's just the three of us. Before we get started, you guys want to do any quick shout outs?
Dog.
Anything to start? Oh yeah, sorry, we have Dog too today. All right, let's go ahead and get things started. I'm going to try not breaking the, well, I just broke it. I'm going to play some Marathon while we talk. So, to get started, how do you guys feel about the Dark Blow? Last time we did the podcast, Dark Blow wasn't out yet. So, now that it's out, what are your thoughts?
I'll let go
Ross
first.
field first. I'm gonna ramble for a while, so if anybody wants to get anything out of the way, you better do it now because
Oh, no,
Okay.
you are more than welcome to.
Impressions of it. Some
Yeah,
really
impressions of it.
spectacular art design. I really loved that Eris's face was a scan of the voice actor. That was really cool. And the amount of time I put into it passed the benchmark of time played on per dollar paid on DLC. So I got my bang for my buck. I kind of stopped playing before I hit level 32 on any of my characters because I'm currently on a short hiatus from Destiny, just recharging. I'll be back with a Fury in a few weeks.
All right. I personally haven't played much since the Dark Blow came out. I got a little tired of playing Destiny, so I don't know how much I have to add to this. But Helvik always has something to say, so you want to take it away?
yeah, sure. I think I'll start off by saying that what I thought I would get and what I ended up actually getting were two very different things. Not to say now that the actual DLC package wasn't good, and nor was it worth my money. Not saying that at all, but the actual content within was it was a little dry. It was like a subpar turkey dinner. It's good, but it was the meat was a little dry, a little lacking, no gravy. So I definitely wasn't pleased with the fact that it was pretty much it didn't help the whole story. I mean, we already sort of knew what was going on with the Hive. That there was Crota and was it Son of Oryx or whatever. I don't know what the hell the whole family tree business is. But the addition of Eris was neat, but it's still like it didn't do much in terms of saying, hey, you know what, like this is more of a background, or this is where the Hive started spawning and when they started spawning, or here's their history or whatever. Like I don't know what they're waiting for to really get into this. They just gave us, a more current event things, which is exactly what the entire game has been so far. Is this guy's here, go kill this guy. This guy's here, go kill this guy. It's not, well, here's this long, lengthy history and detailed story. They had a chance to somewhat redeem themselves from the lacking original story of the full title when it came out. And I mean, like I said in the first podcast, I was sort of insinuating that I strongly believe that there would be a lot more added on in terms of cutscenes, dialogue, story, and there was absolutely none of that found. It was just another vendor, and then a couple more missions with a lot of reused and recycled environments. And I mean, were they fun? Yeah, for sure. I had fun going through them, and I still have fun going through them. But it's as I don't remember who said it, and I've heard it a number of times. But people are like, oh, I got my money's worth. The amount of time that I spent playing equates to the amount of dollars spent, essentially, so it's justified.
Uh-huh.
And I agree with that, and I've said that to many people before. I've used that as an explanation for both the game and the DLC. I'm saying, look, you're getting more multiplayer maps, you're getting more story missions, and you're getting this and that, and new weapons and everything. So it really justifies whatever $15, $20 it is. But at the end of the day, you can't always use it as your justification for a product. I mean, yeah, you get a lot of stuff, but how good is all that stuff, and how different is it from what you already have? So
Yeah.
it becomes a quality quantity thing. Well, yeah, we got a large quantity of stuff coming in, but in terms of quality, is it something new and exciting? Is it something that you really, really, can justify spending the $20 on? Well, yeah, if you want something a little bit different and you want to keep playing Destiny, then sure, spend that money. But it's not something to rant and rave over. It's not an accomplishment. some DLCs are real accomplishments. Like some of the Skyrim DLC and other games before that have released DLC for the price. Some people are saying, this should have been like a standalone something or other. It could have stood on its own because it was that magnificent. But this did not reach that mark for sure.
And I would have to agree to a large extent. There was a lot of hype surrounding the Dark Blow, like with Destiny itself, which I think is why people ended up being a little disappointed by it. But for me, my biggest thing was it was essentially just you got some new stuff, and the new stuff you got was mostly just retextured old stuff. And then you ended up just having to start over too. All the things you had worked so hard to get in the standalone game essentially just didn't matter anymore. So it was it felt forced to me.
Yeah. It was almost like they, I hate to jump on the bashing train, but it's almost like they have a plan, a very lengthy plan, but it's the only way it can be successful is if they constantly resort to having to force people to backtrack. And the whole idea of me upgrading one of my most cherished weapons, the Hawk Moon, getting there was an accomplishment. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I'll use this gun. It's my soulmate for my gun, and I'm always going to use it, and it's always my favorite thing. It's always my go-to. And all of a sudden they go, well, you know what? It's kind of useless now, unless when we find it appropriate, we'll allow you to upgrade it. Don't give me a schedule in which you find it suitable to allow me to upgrade things. Like I shouldn't have to wait X amount of weeks. Today I just upgraded my Dire Skull of Amakara helmet, and I only had to wait like how many weeks? Like it's just you're creating this enticing feeling, this draw to your game by forcing people to have to wait. So it's almost like the distance make the heart grow fonder. So when you're withholding something from somebody for so long, it's just a human compulsion to want to have it. So once the thing's taken away from you after you've had it, you're like, well, shit, I need to get that again. So the system that they have here is it's kind of like much like their loot system. It's kind of lottery based, and it's sort of what makes the game attractive. Is that maybe today I'll get an exotic, or maybe today I'll get a legendary. You partly continue playing for some of these reasons. So they've decided to make this game, which is really fun. They got a lot of stuff right, but it seems like part of the draw and the attraction stems from this. Oh my God, what can I maybe get? Or, oh my God, in a couple of weeks, maybe this will happen. Like, you know what I mean? They're making you wait for things to keep you sort of interested. And you shouldn't have to rely on tactics like those. Those are cheap tactics.
And personally, my thing was, as much as I do enjoy playing it, I don't want to go through it again, because at this point, I expect that's exactly what's going to happen with House of Wolves, is just another Dark Below, where they add a bunch of new stuff, and then all the old stuff is dead, and they just make you wait to get the new stuff.
Well, look at the raid set, right? The raid is completely almost nullified. Like the Crota Zen nullified the previous raid gear. And one thing I thought about talking about before I got here was this whole, what's the terminology that they used? Something about... I think it was transmutation. It's called
transmogrification.
Yeah, whatever. I think, and before I even knew that was a thing in MMORPGs or other game types, I said it. I'm like, why is there no way for me to be able to take whatever piece of armor I want and sort of mine materials or grind out materials for this? So if I want to take my own schedule and focus it on, all my time spent playing focused on getting these materials to change whatever piece of raid gear, whatever drop that I might get, or whatever I might buy from a vendor. Let me choose that. Whatever happened to this become legend, whatever happened to create your own character, whatever happened to, be your own person, your own unique snowflake. Like, this is sort of what they were alluding to very early on, and that sort of didn't happen. So, I would be very surprised if in the next 6 months we didn't see something like that implemented. And if they don't, that's a huge ball drop.
Oh yeah, and I have like 2,000 plasteel plating. You think I could build a small fort with that?
Nah, no building forts. That'd be too much fun. Alright, speaking of the Dark Below, then I'm gonna assume you guys played it. I never actually got through the whole thing, but I ended up playing it when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. What are you guys' thoughts on the Dark Below, or not the Dark Below, Crota's End, the raid? Because we got hard mode coming out on Tuesday.
Raid felt really weird because the Vault of Glass, you have, well, they made you first off open the door, which on the first few runs added a lot of time to it, which was kind of funny, just open the door, but that was actually kind of interesting when it first started out. So it just felt a whole lot longer than the Crota Raid. Crota Raid was like, oh, you're in, but now it's crazy and you have to figure it out, and everything's trying to kill you. The other thing was there were no like outright death traps like the Gorgon maze and the jumping puzzle. There were some really tricky things to figure out, but they didn't have anything odd like that. So overall, the raid just feels shorter and it feels smaller.
I would have to say personally that I feel like the raid took more of a where the Vault of Glass was more focused on, solving puzzles. I feel like Crota's End was more of a kind of like swarm tactics, where
yeah.
this is like, here are a bajillion enemies, you have to kill all of them, and that's the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that sort of mentality comes back to what I think the whole design of the game was sort of aimed at, and that was shoot stuff. And Bungie they're experts at it. For years, they've been really good at making that feel of shooting stuff just really feeling really good and really solid and smooth. But this time around, I mean, they made the gameplay really fun. It's addicting. You get to see all the different guns and how they behave, and that's part of what makes it so interesting. And it's something that they really, hit the mark on. But they neglected, obviously, as we've mentioned, story before. And the Vault of Glass seemed like, one of the few things in the game that, hey, you know what, like, let's put some thought into this, or, there seems to be some sort of story about this place, what are these Gorgons, like, who is Atheon, whatever, like, there was a little bit of a mystery on top of having all the difficulties of figuring out what the hell does this mean, like, what are the oracles, or what are this, and what is that, so there was a lot more thinking, it seems, involved, whereas the Crota was just shoot stuff and just keep running and just shoot some more. And then the only really part that required some sort of brain functionality was when you were at the bridge, and that was pretty easy and quick to coordinate. And then after that, there was no difficult puzzle. There was no really interesting part besides here's a constant barrage of enemies, and just shoot them all and you're good to go pretty much. It took a lot more communication, I think, at some point. I mean, especially at the end when you're killing Crota, you really have to time your rockets and everything like that. But still, as some people have said, actually quite a few people have said, that the Vault of Glass just had something more to it that made it a little bit more attractive. And I think that was, the mazes, and it's also the size, right? Walking through the Vault of Glass was, it took a long time if you actually did take your time. It was quite a large area to be in, and I mean, Crota's End didn't really seem that big in comparison, but I could be wrong. It could just be.
No, I believe that, because Crota's End, you actually teleport twice when you're going in. You just drop down this black miasma, and you're teleported to the spawn point of the map. And then once you cross that first bridge, you're teleported to another segment.
Yeah.
You're not wrong at all. It is in fact a lot smaller.
Yeah, it's the areas are tiny because you spend a lot of time doing things in the same area. You run through the first part, and then you get to the bridge part, and then you stay at the bridge part for the majority, and then after the bridge part, correct me if I'm wrong, but you stay in the same place to kill Crota with where the Death Singer is, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, I haven't gone that far, but...
There's one thing to consider. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. There's one thing to consider.
I died.
I think this raid had more enemies than the VOG did, and with the older consoles, the Vault of Glass had a lot of extra geometry in the background. There were cliffs, and there was all that. Whereas in especially the Darkness Maze, they could just flat out not render stuff more than 200 feet away and you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
So I bet they loved that aspect of it when they were developing for the PS3 and 360. So they could add in all those extra thralls, all those extra knights.
Yeah, it just seemed like that. I mean, I hope that wasn't their thinking, but
Oops.
it just seemed like there was a lot less desire to put in things that really challenged people. Don't get me wrong. Like when I first played the raid, like it was tough, but I think that was partly due to the fact that I didn't have strong enough weapons, nor was I high enough level. In terms of actually being capable to beat something based on skill, well, I mean, give me the right weapons, give me the right armor, and it's not an issue. But I mean, when you look at what is it, the vaulted glass with the teleporting and disappearing blocks that you sort of have to jump around, that's a task that you actually have to be somewhat skilled at. You have to time things, you have to learn, and you have to sort of adapt your strategy really quickly in order to accomplish something. Whereas there's absolutely nothing like that in Crota's End whatsoever. And I mean, I really hope to God that it wasn't sort of a thought process of, hey, you know what, like the vaulted glass is good, but you know we here really just want to focus on stuff that involves shooting this and shooting that. I mean, because if this is any reflection of the way that their raids are developing through time, you know, the House of Wolves raid, I mean, if it's anything that's too similar to Crota's End, like I'm probably pretty disappointed. If there's not something there that actually challenges or something that's a little bit similar or even if not more advanced than the Vault, then yeah, I'll have to say I'll be disappointed.
Well, there is hope for that one because it might mean interacting with the Queen if they throw in any story at all.
If they throw in any story at all, but with how Destiny's been progressing, I'm not going to hold my breath. And for the longest time, like, Destiny came out, and I can't say I'm disappointed in the game because I really did enjoy what I played, and I'm sure that, you know, after a little bit more of a hiatus, I'm going to get back on and play it some more and enjoy it. But I always said that Destiny 2 is really what's going to dictate whether or not I stick with the franchise.
Yeah.
But after The Dark Below, I'm really starting to think House of Wolves is going to be the defining factor of whether or not I buy the second Destiny game.
Well, you can only stick with something for so long, right? I mean, it's like if you're playing something that you don't enjoy, why continue playing? I mean, there's games that I've played before that for the first 10 hours I really enjoyed it, but it didn't have the stuff and the magic there capable of keeping my interest for more than that amount of time. So I just stopped playing it, or I traded it in, or I sold it, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, playing Crota's End was it was a bit of an indicator of what I'm only guessing we can assume we'll see in the future. But I really hope that it's only a small taste, and then also something that they will continue to perfect. I mean, House of Wolves has a lot of weight riding on it because I mean, if it's not something that you know most people enjoy, and they see it's just sort of exact duplicate of the way that they formulated Crota's End, then I think a lot of people are going to start to see the pattern. Oh, okay, well, yeah, a couple more strikes, a couple of boss, nothing different. You know, a lot of once again rehashed geometry and everything. Like Earth is literally the exact same three colors over and over, like brown, green, and
Well,
like
and it's not just the same colors. We didn't really get any new areas. All the story missions pretty much took place in the exact same places you'd already been.
Yeah.
We got in the Seraphim Vault, which was different. The strikes were different areas, and then we unlocked one different area in the moon too, or two.
We got the multiplayer map if you count that.
No, don't count multiplayer. I count the story. I don't play that much multiplayer. But to me, it's my problem with Dark Below was it was again, I feel like I'm being too critical, but it felt lazy, where it was just kind of like, oh, we're just going to take everything we already have and use it again. And in some contexts, I kind of understand that for like free roam and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, my favorite example of this is the ship you get in Crota's.
Oh God.
I've kind of seen that before. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, just look up the Bane of the Dark Gods for your the game. It's exactly the same as the aspect of light.
Yeah, something like I know.
So
It just took one ship and then pasted like two pieces of geometry, which was like Crota's head on it.
yeah, they
Yeah.
took the same ship from the Vault of Glass.
And
It's exactly the same ship,
No,
and then they just added that hive decal.
it's like when you have a pickup truck and you get a big deer, you just strap it over the front.
That's
yeah,
actually probably the most accurate like description I've seen of this so far.
I mean,
And I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it's kind of disappointing to me because I've always expected so much more from Bungie, and maybe that's because I have this like idyllic, nostalgic view of all their past games. But I don't know. It's just I
I,
expected more, and
the ship itself is, and I like because I kind of laugh at the same thing. It's such a small detail. It's just one little tiny piece of geometry to the entire game. It's one ship or two ships, and that they sort of like cheaped on and said, hey, okay, well let's put the skull on this and whatever, and that's it. I mean, in theory, it makes sense. It's that the skull and the skeleton had to have been put on some ship. So who's not to say it doesn't make sense just to use the raid ship and then add it on top? Like I sort of see the idea, but in the same vein, it does sort of seem like a cheap maneuver. And if they're willing to do that, oh hey, maybe they won't notice. We'll just put a little skeleton on it, and then hopefully they won't realize it's the same thing. Like I don't expect that being the mentality at Bungie just because of their history and them being so professional and honest, and they create really good games, and they've always been very forthcoming about everything. And I mean, at a later time during this podcast, I'd like to get into what Deej is dealing with right now, but it just doesn't seem like their mentality to use cheap tactics. But when you see little things like that inside Destiny, you can't help but wonder what's going on. It's just maybe I'm making a big deal out of something that's not really that big of a deal, but if this is a developmental thing that's going to continue over time, and we're seeing shortcuts here and reused geometry there and copy and paste there, like it's really going to start sucking the life or any real fun out of the game. And I mean, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but that's sort of how it seems.
No, you're
no,
very
I
correct.
think
Copy and paste has its places, but Destiny is not a game where it works well. Yeah, I agree with you there.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say exactly what Progo said. I mean, I understand that you take shortcuts in places. You can't, use different things in every aspect of the game, right?
Right.
My understanding is in a lot of games, for example, terrain, they just make a few patterns and then they copy and paste that, and it looks good, right? Going through and painting like dirt for every single, corner of the game world, that's not a good use of time. But I mean, when you look at the ships, first of all the ships are pretty much the same ship. There's what, like 3 or 4 different types of ships, and then everything's just color based, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even like the limited edition ship from the Ghost Edition
Oh,
Well,
that
looks
was
like every other ship
they
out
use
there.
they use about the same 10 pieces and then play Lego with them, and they mix them all
Yeah.
around and they make them look different things. So it's kind of like armor permutations within Halo. It's like, oh well, it's all the same armor, it's just you're wearing it differently, which is granted is okay. But I mean, if I'm such a unique character and I'm customizing my own ship, it'll look very different. Like I won't see too many shouldn't see too many duplicates, but yet I
Oh, yeah.
do. So you know,
And the thing is, like, on one hand, that's kind of cool because I don't know if you guys remember, they had a Vidoc a while ago, before the game came out, where they were talking about how, like, the armor shaders and all that stuff and how they made it.
yes.
And they talked about, yeah, it's kind of like playing Legos. They made these few different things, but they combined it in such a way where each thing was unique. If you're gonna sell it as something so unique, it needs to look unique. It can't look like you took Legos and just rearranged them in a few different places.
You know what they should have done? They should have just given us those tools. Though I know that's like expecting them to make a ridiculous sandbox game, but imagine just being able to manipulate the pieces of the ship, like drop an engine there, put a wing
well, why
there.
not? Why not? There's
You
game.
want to turn it down?
When you compare the scale of games like Dragon Age or Skyrim to a game like this, like it doesn't come off as very big. But I mean, like the characters, all the armor is really detailed. The graphics are all really good. But I mean, I think they got a little carried away with some of the copy and pasting. But granted, this is their first adventure into a game like this. This is the first time that they've sort of reached into a world and explored and experimented with upgrades and armor, or like different armors, as well as vastly different as all these armors are. And and yeah, they can't be perfect on your first go right? It's completely, like I said, new world they're entering into. So it won't be without its faults, and that's understandable. But it's all in moderation, right? And everything. You're copy and pasting, yeah, sure, completely acceptable here and there, but don't overdo it, because then it doesn't look like acceptable. It looks lazy. Some copy and pasting is almost expected here and there, but when you, like I said, get carried away with it, it becomes lazy. And not everywhere, but in some parts of the game, it's quite clear that, okay, you know what, this is a bit silly. So like even the ships, I sort of laugh at every now and then. I'm like, this is a bit silly. And some of the Earth geometry, well, all the planets, Earth, Moon, the buildings, all the dirt and the computers here and there scattered about. It all just seems, I don't like using the word lazy, but it's almost borderlining. It's on the threshold of it, and you're kind of like, you could have done a little bit more. But maybe those were time restraints. I don't know. Maybe that was something that they just couldn't fit into their schedule because they didn't have enough time.
All right. Well, speaking of time, we're going to segue just a little bit. Don't want to get too stale on a topic. We got the Pentathlon going on, which is always an exciting time of the year. Either of you want to take it away and explain to what some of the newer members on BNet what the Pentathlon is and what it represents?
A glorious contest between different levels of employees that may or may not result in death.
A violent spectacle of blood, which basically, if you lose, you are humiliated and shamed for the rest of your life, and lucky to have a job after that. I think they fire you, don't they, if you lose? I can't remember. Anyway.
They flog you with the wet noodle and then they fire you.
Yeah.
The second loser gets the shaft.
It's something that, and honestly, it's a bit funny because it's something that I've always paid attention to, at least a little bit every year. But it's something I'm very, very strongly envious of, and I think that's why I don't invest too much energy in paying attention to it, because I've never worked a job before that held any sort of activity remotely close to that. So all I can say is those guys are very lucky to have an employer that treats them as well as they do.
Okay, so to get into depth a little more, so the Pentathlon is just kind of like a little celebration they have every year. They have this cool trophy. I'm going to see if I can find a picture and show you guys because I have it from the one time I visited. But it's a big
trophy.
I didn't have the trophy. I took a picture of the trophy in the display case. I wasn't allowed to touch.
I could see you stealing it.
I would have if I could have. But Jerome's frightening. But it's a big tournament they have. They play, hence the name, Pentathlon. It's a series of 5 games, and they just kind of see who comes out on top. You got the newbies, you got the middle school, old school, grizzled ancients, and this year they added a new one. They added the disembodied souls, which is definitely new. But each one represents... Yeah, it's above grizzled. Grizzled got pushed down, and now disembodied souls is the oldest. So you got your different age groups of employees, and they just fight it out, see which group's the best. Old school, with a K, because they're cool enough for that, is definitely going to win. That's my thought.
Yeah, it's middle school.
And that's a pentathlon.
It's middle school.
I've always been a fan of the
middle
grizzled.
school sucks.
Oh, they suck, but they're going to win.
I always cheer for whatever age group I'm closer to, and I've been around long enough to where I'm getting close to the old school. So, old school, when they become grizzleds, I'll start cheering for them.
It's
crap! And the scoreboard, the newbies are winning.
That's for sure. I think they have some of the best costumes, though. They trump Halloween with some of their costumes. It's I remember somebody dressed up as.
Didn't Shishka dress up as like a fairy in a tutu or something?
Yeah,
I saw exactly. Cool.
He had the pink tutu.
The image that is now forever burned inside my head is I'm pretty sure Shishka in a tutu. Yeah, nightmares.
Shishka tutu. Is anyone else? No. I found a thread on the forums. Sorry, continue. I'll stop interrupting you.
No, I was just Shishka in a tutu is all I can think of right now. I don't know why.
Because he wasn't a tutu, and I have to find it. But, so any predictions? I didn't look too much into what's going on this year with the Pentathlon, but predictions on games, I don't know what we're currently
All
sitting
I can
at right
say,
now.
all I can say is whatever team Urka's on, I hope they lose. That's all I'm going to say.
It's not very nice.
And I'm not apologizing
Personally,
for
I
that. I'm not
go
apologizing for
against Stosh, but
The newbies are winning right now in Super
are they?
Smash
Damn
Bros.
it!
It's the only one that's listed right now.
Shame, shame, shame. I can't
Yeah.
find Shishkuna Tutu, so I'd probably need to go through the archived Pentathlon articles. All right. Let's see. What should we talk about next? We kind of touched on Dark Blue, which was my next topic, and so I guess we'll go back. Helvik, you mentioned you wanted to talk about Deej and kind of what he's going through right now. So
Okay.
I will let you take it away quickly with Deej.
I am. I've observed the community managers for obviously a number of years now, and as the years go on, obviously the community gets larger and larger, and so the managers deal with a bit more influx of
Sorry,
members.
I'm going to
And
interrupt quickly. One of our viewers just posted and corrected me. Apparently, middle school won.
Oh, they did? Oh,
So old school, you let me down.
maybe I was looking. Oh, I probably didn't refresh my page or something. Crap.
Anyways, I'm sorry for interrupting.
no,
Continue,
no, no,
Alec.
no worries. All I was going to say is, obviously every year that it's like it's bigger, and the community manager has to deal with more stuff, more inquiries, more complaints, more concerns, more wishes. Obviously, there's no end to the amount of wishes that are currently on our forums right now. But I mean, I have to say, his job is very unique in the fact that he has to remain very customer service oriented while dealing with a lot of silliness and ridiculous statements and Jesus, even things so far as threats and whatnot. And I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. At the same time, it's quite embarrassing to identify with the community, and then you have people on the other side of the world somewhere uttering some stupid threat because Master Rahul changed his legendary engram into a rare engram or something like that, or a rare weapon. And I mean, I really wish that the community would start to realize that the only way you're going to get changes is if you actually sit down and get on the same page as everybody else and form support for the changes that you wish to see. But it seems right now everything's sort of sitting in chaos. And I mean, why I want to bring this up is because Deej is sort of our conduit for spreading what we wish to see changed into, the company that is the developer that is Bungie. And if we want to actually be taken seriously, people need to start forming groups and getting large support numbers to help back their claims. Because right now everybody's sort of running their own lone wolf game, prioritizing their complaints over everybody else's, even though they're very similar. So that's just something that I want to be clear that, if we as a community can start to band together and say, hey, there's things here that exist that need to be implemented into the game because, as much as this is your game that you've built, Bungie, we're the ones playing it, and we're the ones that are going to give it its longevity over the next 10 years, if that is the plan. So, there's sort of a customer loyalty, I think, in place, without sounding like I have too much ownership over the game, that should be respected. And I think the only way we're going to get that respect is if, we treat somebody like Deej with respect. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. And much like Urk and Frankie and K-Paul and all those people before him that dealt with the series of complaints on the forums, it's really hard to be taken seriously when you're not really formulating your complaints in the most intellectual manner possible. Swearing, threatening, belittling, arguing is no way to get anything done or accomplished. So I just sort of wanted to speak the piece on that because I think, like I said, the more we sort of start banding together and forming real ideas for things to be changed, it could be a positive thing for all of us, really, at the end of the day. I mean, things like, your bigger... the bigger vault, things like the morphication or whatever it's called. Who probably what that's called? What's it called?
Um.
Transmorphication.
Yeah, that.
Oh, that
Whatever.
thing. Yeah, sorry. I was reading our our little
Progo's not
feed here.
actually listening to what you're
Sorry.
saying, but I promise I'm there for you, Helvik.
No, but just things like that are, I think, really important, and a lot of people want to see change. Just nobody's really all on the same page, and the people that are asking for changes aren't being taken seriously just based off their behavior. So just a little personal event of mine that I want to take it out there. And
I agree with that, and I think the Reddit has been doing a very good job of that, because I noticed that crowd of people is usually older, has a little bit more experience being a fan of something. And I noticed the Destiny Reddit, people make ideas, the thread goes trending, it's referred to later, but they don't hammer it to death. It all stays in that thread usually. I mean, there are duplicates for sure, because not everybody's on there 24/7. But
yeah.
I noticed the Reddit has much more coherency, and that actually makes me really hopeful, because that means that once people get the idea, it's going to be better. So the pitching of changes will be more organized. People won't go make their own thread, say Armor Lock and Reach. They won't go making their own thread about it. They'll go find one and then put their opinion in there. That's pretty much the organization we need.
I think we could really use getting the Reddit community over on BNet. I mean, not all of them are perfect by any means, but it would be nice to see a few more individuals like that.
I know a few who have bailed for there.
Yeah, I've seen a few posts on there. But okay, so I'm gonna beat the dead horse because it's my favorite dead horse to beat here. But Helvik, you mentioned banding together, and what better way to band together than private groups? And those are something we really haven't heard much about last little while. I know there's a lot of problems that are still going on that haven't been addressed. If you guys had to come up with like a quick list of things that definitely you feel like need to be implemented, what would they be?
Jeez, that's a bit of a tough one, because I mean, groups have pretty much been more or less drawn down to the simplicity of the private messaging. I mean, I don't visit threads really anymore. Like, once I'll forget entirely about all the forms and all the threads and sub-threads inside the private groups, because I just don't really use them, because I figure most people are just chatting in the private message, and it's taken away from the forums. There should be some sort of incentive, whether it be things like member titles or something related to the clans that you're in. I mean, there's absolutely zero clan interaction. The only thing the clan has relevance in is having my little dragons thing on top of my emblem. I mean, I thought there was going to be a lot more extensive inclusions, but there's not. It's very bare bones. And I mean, if you were to make a clan and make a group tied together, and it's obviously the same thing. So if you're in this clan, you're also in this private group, and it's one thing altogether. And if you post here or you set up a game here, you can see the stats here. So like this is probably, it all sort of loops together. So I'm going to branch out a little bit here. But if there's something like a custom game that I want to play against Dude Nailers, and so we play together, and then you can go, hey, you can't see this in a private message, but go to the forum and look at the private forum and see, hey, there's pictures and recaps and detailed stats about the entire game that is only made possible if you have a clan and a private group ready, and it can only be shown through that venue. But anywhere else you can't see it. So you can't see it in chat or whatever, unless you obviously screen cap it. But just like features like that, that's pretty huge, I think. But including stuff like that will create a draw back to private groups. So okay, here's your clan, and then all these neat things in between that you can do with it. You can compare people, see all these different stats, and all these versus or nemesis and things like that. Different bounties, bounties can be incorporated into clans. So kill 2 clan members, or kill like 2 clan enemies from like another what's it called? Whatever. I can't think of the goddamn word. whatever other enemy clan there is out there. And then you can see inside the private group all these bounties that are collected from participating in things related to the private groups. And it's just things that are related to the game, I think, would help draw people in more than what's there now, which is pretty much next to nothing. So I mean, I would have to sit down and really go over it over time, because I haven't had much time to think about it, hence why I'm jabbering. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of potential there for saving them, but it doesn't seem like they're really onto that right now.
That would make a good thread. So I'm just suggesting you make one.
That actually would be a legitimate thread, because if you look at it right now, there's really no point behind being in a clan.
No.
You got a
It's an
small
achievement.
group of people. It's an achievement, but what else, right? There's not much else. You can play with your clan in the game, but then there's alliances. What's the point of alliances?
Well, and that goes back to
You can't compete with other clans. You can't do anything together.
And that goes back to me thinking that they might have dropped the ball on something or had these grand ideas that they sort of just went, hey, you know what, we don't really have time for that, or we can't fix that, or hell no, nobody's even going to bother playing that, so why waste the time on it? And yet we're all sitting here going, yeah, like in the beta, my image, my speculation of what was to come was something a lot more expansive than what we got. And you know, I look at the clan and people send me alliance requests. So I'm like, hey, cool. You know what? That'd be really neat if it meant anything.
Yeah.
You know, and the huge one thing that nobody talks about very often, which is one thing that I don't like talking about because it makes me really angry, as angry as I can get for caring about a video game. But the lack of custom games. What were they thinking? What? How do you release a game after building the success off of all your previous games, off of multiplayer, which is like partly LAN and custom games and all this stuff that people can go to and play with and tweak that just really keep people attracted to your game. Yet when you release online multiplayer only, or like online always only, you neglect to say, hey, you know what may be a useful idea? If we're gonna have clans, why don't we have custom games so those clans can verse each other and have this representation put onto the website inside their clans, inside their private groups, and it shows how many times this person's been killed, or how many times this enemy group has killed this enemy group, or with how many what type of weapons and stuff like that. You've seen the website throughout the years of Halo 2 and Halo 3 and how these stat pages grew massively. I don't give a shit about my stats right now because I'm not playing anybody that I care about competing against. I'm put up against random people in matchmaking that I don't give two shits about. Yet all that competitiveness is gone from friends getting the workplace together with another group of people and then being able to go onto the forums and be friends but to brag about it. That's part of what makes gaming fun. When you can wave your bragging rights in front of your friend's face, that's part of what makes gaming so fun. But it's not there.
No, yeah, and I have to agree. I pulled up my stats for Halo 3. So of the 2,700... Whoops, I went to the wrong page. Any second now. All right, so the 2,772 games I played, right? And I only played for a few years because I got Halo 3 near its end. I played close to 2,000 custom games. Custom games were and always have been my biggest source of enjoyment in games because I'm not very competitive, all right? I can play matchmaking, and if I really try and I'm having a good day, I can kick ass, okay? Pat myself on the back, whatever. But I don't enjoy competing that way because I enjoy just, shits and giggles with friends. And that was my thing. Get on Halo 3 for the weekend, load up some Infection, load up some Griffball, load up something stupid and fun, and just screw around, talk, and have fun. And the fact that they didn't bring that over to Destiny, I mean, that's probably my biggest gripe with the game, is just you can't have these cool, custom, friendly interactions with people. You can either do the story, you can do a raid, or you can play matchmaking. But you can't choose your experience, really.
Roland, what were your stats again for your Halo 3 games?
2,772. Again, I played near the end. How much do you have?
No. That was your total, 2,272?
Yeah.
Okay, what was the breakdown between your social, ranked, and custom games?
Social was 603, ranked was 613, and custom was 1530.
There you go. So I have total games 5,557 Halo 3 games. Social 2,313. Ranked 1,320. Custom 1,860. I played more custom games than I did ranked games. So explain to me why this seemed like a good idea. Now, I might be only one of a few people that have.
No. I played
that
more
system.
custom games in ranked and social and campaign combined.
Right, and maybe we're just a couple of rare creatures, much like unicorns, that don't really exist very often in this world, or at all. And so when they looked at the grand scheme, and this sounds very, I'm being very,
I got a horn.
I'm being very facetious here. I don't mean to be a jackass, but I'm going to.
No.
So
Go for it.
Bungie took all their stats and said, "Hey guys, should we put custom games in here?" Nah, look, there's only like a couple people that play it. Was the number really that small? I don't think it could have been. How could you see those numbers regularly? Like you coincidentally and me have so many custom games played. I'm sure many other people did as well. Was the validity not there to justify including custom games? Because I guarantee you, the griping and complaining involved in this game would be a lot less prevalent had they included things like clans, real clans, which people have been begging for since they were gone in Halo 3, and then competition between clans. If you're all about building legend to face a real challenge, the next best challenge out there is somebody that you personally know that is on your level of skill that you can compete with on a regular basis. Most of my custom games were with the same few group of people, and that was the most fun I had playing. Playing random people.
I played with the same 16 people not 16, 12? I can't even remember now.
Yeah, I think it was 16.
16.
Max was 16.
Too long ago. I have other things I need to worry about now. But I played with the same group of people every weekend, and I never got tired of it. And sometimes we'd add new people, and suddenly I'm playing with like a few new people, and it's still fun. And then I go back to the guys I played with before. And it's not just us. I'm looking at all these different people I know. All of them have more custom games played than any other game. Sometimes ranked and social together outweigh custom games, but custom games is like consistently more than anything else.
You should know as a developer that you screwed up when many of the people that are buying your game that's not out, it's not out yet, but when many of the people that are pre-ordering and purchasing your game are sitting there going, "Oh, I'm sure it's just a given. It's obvious that when the game comes out, I'll be able to just play with my friends in custom games." Then I'm sitting there surfing through the menu going, "Okay, this is all great and fine and dandy, but how do I get to the custom games? Oh, they're not there. Excuse me? Why not?" Like,
I'm looking at reach stats too, and it's the same thing.
Exactly. So I do not for the life of me understand why. Because programming, I don't know anything about programming or implementing things like custom games into a video game, but something tells me it couldn't have been that hard. If anybody has an expert opinion on this, I would like to hear. But I feel like it's not that hard, and I would love to know the reasoning for it. And if you're going to sit here and try and tell me as an advocate to the entire game, which I will clarify once again, I play this game very often, I do enjoy it, but it's about talking about things that need to change. And when you talk about the lack of custom games, they're not in the game because of, then the loot system, how do you have people avoid abusing that? Or, what's the point of playing custom games if there's no rewards? Or people would just boost their experience and whatever. No, I don't care. Don't give me shit for playing custom games. I don't care about custom games, like getting rewards from them. I care about beating the enemy team or doing better.
Oh, and you could have hilarious shenanigans with the sandbox-style Destiny, because you can have everyone choose the crappiest
What's
weapon possible.
Complete side note, Destiny is strongly lacking in the area of Banshees and Hornets, but that's just me.
I do miss my flying vehicles. I miss vehicles in general. I mean, yay, Pike. But,
yeah, I just got finished playing Halo 1 and 2 Anniversary, and man, driving that Warthog around again, whew.
I need to get a few days of Xbox Live and get back on Halo 3 and just play it. It'd be so much fun. But let's go ahead and just keep things moving. Progo, this is for you. Machete is telling you to talk about Bernie's thread. Quick.
Bernie's thread. I better check out
something you need to tell us?
This sounds like something new.
Nothing?
Going checking out the likely source of such thread.
All right. Helvik, do we have any ideas on what to rant about while we wait for Progo?
Oh, Jesus, I can rant about anything. It's just a matter of finding out.
I know, that's why I love having you on the podcast. I never need to stall topics, I just let you talk.
That's pretty bad. I shouldn't be the only one talking.
I found it.
No, you're not. I occasionally chime in. How about we quickly? I don't think we ever did this, but this is the first time on our podcast we have someone super famous. We have Helvik, the reason there's dragons in Destiny. You want to tell us about the dragons?
Oh God, does anybody even care about this?
I do.
Okay.
Even though I left your group to be in this one.
That's okay. I hate you. Anyway, so
I'm still your co-founder, so I'll just delete the group. Whoops.
The whole dragons thing is really funny, and I'll tell a little story about the whole dragons thing being in Destiny, and it's how it's been validated. Their existence in Destiny is only possible by my hand, my power, my sway that I have with all those guys over there at Bungie.
Yeah. Helvik's a power player.
Yeah, the whole dragons thing happened. I think I started back in 2011, and I think I just finished getting into Skyrim, and I was a big fan of dragons. Honestly, all joking aside, I've always, as fantasy monsters and creatures, and anytime they've ever appeared in the books, I've loved dragons. I mean, I was born in the year of the dragon. I mean, it's all very suitable. So when I was playing Skyrim, I was sitting on Bungie.net one day, and I was really bored out of my mind. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just make another stupid satire or completely pointless thread. And for whatever reason, I'll put dragons in it. And there was another story about why I put dragons in it. Inside joke that is completely irrelevant right now. But anyway, I put them in the thread, and then I started making more threads. But in one of the first threads that I made, I said, if you're not putting #dragons or anything dragons in your thread, it's garbage. And so even if I would make a thread completely unrelated to dragons, at the very end of it, I would have to write dragons. If I didn't write it, I would get heat from everybody else in the forum saying, Helvik, this thread sucks because it lacks dragons. So dragons becoming a very important staple in the Bungie.net community, I realized that they needed to be incorporated as often as possible. Other people took to this pattern and started mimicking all the dragon movement that I had started. And more often than not, the threads got sillier and sillier and became completely almost incoherent and just turned into a giant rambling of nothing. And then it actually became a movement to the point where I thought, hey, you know what? Let's try and somehow convince Bungie to, in some way or another, incorporate dragons into the game. And as we all know, a game without dragons is complete trash. So Bungie heeded my warning and realized, you know what? He's right. I think, they were quick to realize that if dragons were not inside the game, then it probably wouldn't sell any more than, I don't know. What's a very terrible game that came out last year? Oh, like Aliens, Colonial Marines. Yeah, they would have ended up selling less copies than Aliens had they not put dragons in the game, and they knew this. So under my consultation, they said, hey, how do you want to put in dragons? And I said, do whatever you want, be creative. So they said, okay, we're not going to give you any credit. We're going to completely ignore you and pretend like we never spoke to you. Yet, coincidentally, after all your threads and your rantings and your ravings and people calling you a madman, which is great for our cause because nobody will believe you, we'll put dragon armor, dragon helmets, dragon gauntlets, dragon arms, dragons in the sky, dragons in the lore, dragons in the Grimoire cards. But Helvik had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, after I've said this to you guys, and this is on this podcast, please save this to an external hard drive, because if I disappear and a wet noodle is found beside my dead body, there's only one person responsible for it. Only one person. Well,
Urk.
One entity. So, yeah, Urk or Deej, at the request of Urk. So, just throwing that out there. So, yeah, that's sort of the Reader's Digest version of the story of dragons. And there was actually, believe it or not, and this isn't a joke, I can't say his name because I don't want to say anything without it actually being 100% true, but this is verbatim what he told me. An employee that works at Bungie was playing with me one day, and I said, we were joking about the dragons thing, and I can't remember the exact context, but he goes, the Helvik, yeah, you did put dragons in Destiny, and I laughed. I said, shut up, you're just kidding. He goes, no. He goes, I'm not kidding. He's like, the guy that wrote the Grimoire cards spent quite a bit of time reading through the forums, and he goes, so it's no wonder that they're that the dragons ended up playing the Grimoire cards. So I'm not in the credits. Like I said, my body will probably wind up in a ditch somewhere for having disclosed this, but now you guys know the truth.
Well,
All right.
I have something disturbing to add onto that.
Oh.
My name, Progo, Progo, is actually a nod to a dragon in a science fiction children's book by Madeline L'Engle, A Wind in the Door. It's one of the series that, what's it called? A Wrinkle in Time, the children's classic, was written in. I loved that when I was like 10. So I'm named after a dragon.
It should be renamed Dragons. They should rename it just Dragons.
Dragons.
So I found
All right,
the thread.
Progo, you're ready. Yes.
Yes,
All
I found
right.
the thread. And it was a gigantic list of wonderful suggestions for fixing groups that El Burninator had compiled.
Speaking of El Burninator, him and his sassy reply, only 38% of his games in Halo 3 were custom. Only 38%.
We should feature him in a podcast sometime and rip on him.
We can do that later, but link me the thread. I'll post it in the forums.
Oh, you won't be able to.
Or no, Burninator posted it already. All right, good job, Burninator.
Ah, there it is.
All right, so we can all discuss this. Aesthetics, a dark theme? No, I like my eyes being blinded. The blood coming from my eyes is healthy. It's like when they used to do bloodletting. Theme customization, you can pick a header image, you can pick an avatar image. Titles, those are just fancy hats.
Customization is great when you've perfected the functionalities and all the other nooks and crannies and bells and whistles, because they still have a lot of stuff to do on the functionality side.
Don't worry, that's the next section. He listed them alphabetically. So it's
okay, yeah. I'm glad.
Glancing over this, I hit thread. If you guys are watching this podcast, you should go through the podcast thread I made and find his link for this. And let's see, how old of a thread is it? It's a new thread. It's 2 days old, so I can necro bump it and not feel bad. It's a decent thread, yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? I mean, I think the dark theme doesn't even need to be listed. It's so painfully obvious. Emphasis on the painful part. And the shout out to Burninator. We totally can handle you. He's goading me in the forum right now.
I really wish they would make titles come back, and I don't care about the titles and what they say, but I think it acted as a bit of a tool, or more of an incentive for good behavior, because as like I said earlier with how Destiny sort of worked, the things that you don't have are the things that you want, and it's waiting for those things and working for those things that make you continue on that specific path or that specific mission. And I mean, there were times where, obviously, because I don't take video game forums or video games very seriously for that matter, even though I'll sit here and talk about them till I'm blue in the face, just because they're fun to talk about. And much like the forums, I never really cared about the forums, but I got to the point where I was getting banned so much and warned so much, so I was like, hey, I actually kind of want to post this weekend, and I can't because I've been banned. Or, I really like having that something different that shows, hey, I've been around for a little while, I'm not just brand new, and then it's taken away from me, and you're kind of like, okay, now I look like a rookie again. So having
they added custom titles in Destiny, so you can have your little emblem that no one knows what it even means.
Yeah, exactly. So having the little blue bar that showed me that, now that I could acknowledge I was better than everybody else, was, just... It was something that I appreciated, right? And I mean, when you actually have something that, obviously, I know it's not a hierarchy really, but it's sort of like it's a reward for good behavior. And I mean, we shouldn't have to reward good behavior; it should be expected. But obviously, we don't live in a perfect world. So you take that away, and everybody just runs rampant, right? There's no need to have any boundaries because, hey, I don't give a crap. I can just go behave like this, and then I'll get warned, or somebody might hide my post, and I might get banned. But there's no little treat for them. And I mean, especially if you're a younger member, I think you're a little bit more enticed into being, hey, like, there's something for you if you behave as everyone else is, which is normal, and you can sort of have this little neat thing that shows that you are a trusted and respected member. Because usually people would always say, I'm not going to ignore people because they don't have a blue bar, but sometimes the blue bar, which I mean the mythic member status, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it sometimes signified that, hey, this person's been around for a while, so the knowledge that they might have might be a little bit more extensive than what somebody who has a plain gray bar would have. That wasn't always the indicator, obviously, but you guys get what I'm saying. It's just something that I think is there that it definitely helps keep people maybe a little bit more in line than they otherwise would be without anything.
Oh yeah,
When
that's really true. Go ahead, Roland.
When I first joined BNet, I was 12 years old, and there were two things that kept me posting and in line. I really wanted to be a moderator, and I really wanted a different title bar. All right, and yeah, I've wisened up now, and I'm not concerned about those things anymore. But that was the driving force. I mean, I'm 12-year-old. I was 12 years old. I'm not anymore. But it's like you look around and like, oh, these people, they're so cool. They can do all these things, right? 12-year-olds are super impressionable, and it was cool being rewarded for that activity. It wasn't necessary, but it was still a nice feature to have. And on top of that, you shouldn't need to reward good activity, but it's not just that. It rewards you for investing into an account. Whereas right now, people are running around. Everyone has like 80 alts. I swear I don't see the same person post more than twice. They just switch accounts because their old account got banned, right? The titles and the old system made it so it would be worthwhile for you to invest in a single account for a longer period of time. It was the reason to grab onto one account and run with it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I
really
think
true.
titles need to be back.
Well, the other big thing was actually it wasn't just, it was also kind of, well, the community. The best way to tell if someone was trolling you or not, and whether or not the troll was going to like kill you.
Well,
so like when I first
So
joined,
if they had
there
a
was
blue
stereotype.
bar, they were more likely to actually troll and kill you. That's how it boiled down to,
Well,
typically.
when I first joined, my perception was, okay, these guys are troublemakers, but they're never actually going to be truly malicious. So
Yeah, that's
generally,
true.
if one tells me to do something, they're probably not going to ruin my life. But, well, now I joined. If you look at my account, 4-year join date, I'm the most stereotypical reach tard in existence. I even found some of my old threads complaining about various vehicle things. I was like, oh, cleanse it with fire. But what made me behave was I saw mythics and even legendary members like, oh, those guys are cool. And I've always loved these games even before I got on Bungie.net, so I think I'll get plugged into the community. And right when I hit noble member, titles ended. But by then I was addicted enough that I stuck around.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dimji's not here for his 04 or bust spiel. But I mean, I joined BNet. Since I wanted titles so badly, I posted a lot, tried not to get banned, and it worked. I've never been banned yet. I've only been warned once, and that was Cubics, and it was for the dumbest reason ever, so I still hold a grudge for that.
I have been banned,
But,
unfortunately. It's a very funny story if you'd
Shame
like to
on
hear
you.
it. Well, no. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's go for it. All right, everyone, let's hear how
fixed
Progo got
something.
banned.
I fixed BNet, but I had to get banned as a result. So what happened
Huh.
was someone made a very, I think it was a very snobby thread in one
Was
of
it
the
me?
game sections. No, it was not
Probably.
you. It was some alt. But anyways, it was a group post and a public group post. I was not in the group, and I called out the OP. I said, you're just being a lousy person. Stop that. And apparently, I burned him a little bit too hard because he edited my comment, which was something admins and groups could do to public posts' comments. Edited my comment into something explicit that involves something spinning. I think we all know what this is.
This just in, Progo has a thing for meat spin.
So one of the many bots jumped on that and hammered me really hard. They got a few other people, but I was the only one with enough repute to actually dispute it. And Butane saved my butt. And
Butane, classy dude.
she contacted Deej, and Deej was like, "Are you aware that you posted this?"
Did you say butane and then she contacted?
He did.
Have
Butane's
I
a
been
he.
trolled? Ah, crap. That was the only time ever interacting.
I mean,
probably
correct me
not-
if I'm wrong. I
it's
thought
probably
Achilles
not.
was Miss
That
Moderator.
is fantastic.
It was probably Terminator who told me.
Oh, you are so new. It's cute.
Butane has
Alright.
boobies.
Oh,
So anyways, I
need
got
to-
a band repeal. I got a very, very rare band repeal. I was banned
Take
for
her
2
on a
days.
date.
Yeah, so
All right, enough about cute butane.
All right. I mean, butane's pretty cute, but you'll make Erica jealous. All right. We've been at it now for over an hour, so I mean, we can draw this out some more if you guys got something to go on. But I
No,
think
I'm gonna
we're
shoot-
good
I'm
for
gonna
calling
shoot.
it wraps this time around.
I'm gonna go shoot some stuff in Destiny. Maybe play some.
All right.
I'm gonna go
Yeah,
hunt
we're
down
just gonna
whoever
go
told
shoot
me he
stuff.
was female.
All right,
Let's
you
go
go
tonight.
redeem yourself, and I'm going to probably play Counter Strike. I don't know. I have friends trying to get me
Oh
into
wait,
that.
it was Charlemagne. Oh my gosh.
I'm going
He's
to give
gonna
Charlemagne a cookie.
He's
All right,
gonna
so
kill
everyone say goodbye to Helvig's dog.
Goodbye, Helvig's dog.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
Helvig's dog. All right, and so long, community. We love you. Check out the thread for the podcast. There's a link to the other thread with all the January events. We have a newsletter coming out next week, and if you didn't see it last time, the newsletter is actually really cool. So shout out to Zython and his team for putting that together. Shout out to the people that got the game nights running last week. You're all awesome. Thank you to all the people that are helping us keep these events going, and shout out to the community for being so awesome. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. See ya.